girls. How you doing?
Good.
What are you painting, Sophie?
A rainbow.
A rainbow. Oh, that's pretty. You like to paint, huh? Now, let's see what Allie is doing over on the other side. Working on the chalkboard. What are you drawing?
Magic.
What is it? You having fun? You know, I think the thing that's really a test of a good easel is how much the kids enjoy it. They can spend hours here. Ours incorporates the chalkboard on one side with plenty of room for the chalk and the eraser. A drawer in the middle to store some of the things that are used. And the paintboard side actually has a roll of paper which slips down through the frame, and it doesn't have to be clipped. So they can do one painting after another, just running them through. Before we do any woodworking today, I want to take a moment to talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. I want to start on this project by working on this top assembly, which not only holds the paper roll, but it also holds the legs. Just made a 15-degree angle cut on the end of a piece of 1x6, which is the same angle as the flare of the legs. Now the piece has to be 6 3/8 inches long along the bottom edge. And I'll cut a 15-degree angle on the other side. Now I'll need 2 of those. This angle blank will become the inner part which holds the roll, and it will get rounded over. On the outer part of the assembly, I need a piece that's 6 3/8 along the bottom, same 15-degree angles, but only 3 inches high. The inner and outer pieces are joined with 2 small blocks of wood that I cut from a piece of stock that I've left the bottom edge square, and I've beveled the top edge at 15 degrees. I need 2 pieces 3 1/8 inches long for each assembly. The paper roll is supported by this dowel. On one end, I made a slot so that it can be removed, and on the other end, just a hole 1/4 inch deep. To hold all the pieces together, no screws, no nails, just a little bit of glue and some biscuits. Before I can do any assembly, there's 2 more steps. I have to attach this hinge, which holds the front leg, and I have to attach the back leg, because I won't be able to get a screwdriver in there later. Now the legs are nothing more than pieces of 1x2 ash, about 48 inches long. And that seems to be just about the right height. For the fixed legs, I'm using a little bit of glue and a number 6 by 1.25 inch screw that I'm putting in a pre-drilled hole. And these have square drive heads. With butt joints like this, glue alone would never be enough to hold the assembly together. And now just a couple clamps to hold the assembly together while the glue dries. While the leg's set up, let's start working on the framed chalkboards. Around each chalkboard is a piece of ash that starts out being 7/8 of an inch wide, 3/4 of an inch thick. And I want to run a groove down the center to receive the chalkboard. To do that, I'm going to use my stacked dado head cutter, which is set up for 1/4 of an inch width and a depth of about 3/8. Whenever I build a project like this, especially when kids are going to be using it, I like to make sure that I remove all the sharp edges on the wood. So I just use this little plane. And what it is a tool that just has a right angle piece in it with a couple little cutters that just slightly chamfer the edge. Each frame measures 24 by 18, and the corners are joined with 45-degree miters. You know, I catch a lot of kidding about the number of clamps I have here in the New Yankee workshop. Add to the collection these corner clamps, which come in real handy when you're trying to glue up frames. What I have to do to start is take the frame pieces and just set them in the clamp. Move this large piece until we get approximately to the thickness of the frame pieces. Like this. Tighten this down snug. And once I'm close, I can put a little bit of glue on the joint. Set it back in the clamp. And by turning this hand screw, start to get it to clamp together. And as you can see, it does a great job just pulling that joint perfectly tight. Now I'm just going to drill a pilot hole for a screw. Okay, now with that corner attached, I'll do the same thing to this corner. Now for the other two corners, I'll pre-drill them using these clamps, but I can't glue them until I put the board in. Well, now for the chalkboard. I had several choices in what material to use. One of them was this metal that has a surface applied or sprayed on to one side. It's very easy to write on and clean up, but it's very flexible, so I'd have to back it with some kind of plywood. Another choice would be to go to the home center and get some tempered hardboard and pick up a quart of what's known as chalk paint and paint it on. But I'm afraid if I use a brush, at least the ones I've seen, it comes out kind of rough, not very good to write on. And I'm not sure about spraying it on. So it seems like the best product that I found is this one. Again, a tempered hardboard on one side, but on the other side, a factory-applied finish, which is very smooth, so the chalk doesn't skip or jump, and it cleans up easily. Now, you may have to search around to find this. We certainly did. But eventually we found some at a school supplier. Now the chalkboard isn't going to go anywhere after it's in the frame, but I'm going to add a little glue along the long pieces just to secure it so it won't move around as you're trying to draw on it. Now a little glue on the miters. Now we'll just screw it in place. All right, well now we'll build another one. While the frame's dry, let's start working on the bottom storage tray. Each long side is L-shaped. It's a little bit higher on one end. I need to glue two pieces together. I'm going to join the pieces together using some biscuits and glue. Now here again, I don't want to show any screws or nails. The biscuits and glue will do the job. You might have noticed that on the high side of the tray I have this strip with a whole series of holes in it, and they're for markers and large crayons that seem to be pretty popular. I'll make those holes over at the drill press. In front of the markers is a small piece with a trough in it to hold small brushes or pencils. I can make that with a router. To make the trough, I'm using a 1/2-inch round nose bit and my guide fence. I'll start by plunging the bit in at the starting mark and going to the end and just stopping. All right, well, I think that should do it for today. We'll let the glued up pieces cook overnight and we'll easily be able to finish this project tomorrow. Well, good morning. I came to the shop bright and early today and removed all my glue-ups from the clamps. And now I'm doing some sanding. A very tedious job, but vital. I've sanded all my frames nice and smooth, making sure to get the corners where the joints are. I've taken the leg assemblies and sanded them, making sure to take time to knock off all the edges so that our new young artist will not get any slivers or cuts. I have all the pieces for the tray assembly, which I've sanded on both sides. Now, you might think it's a little premature to be doing all this sanding right now, but once this assembly is together, it's very difficult to get the inside edges. And by doing the sanding now, we'll get a much better result with the finish. I started the sanding using some 100 grit paper, and now I'm doing the final step with 120 grit paper. First thing I want to do to the tray is create some dados in each side piece. The cross pieces are held with screws that are then plugged with some pieces of ash. I need a dado for this end piece. I need a dado for the markers. And I need 2 dados over here for the sides of the compartment which hold the eraser and chalk. And I'll make the dados at the table saw. The bottom of the storage tray is a piece of 1/4-inch plywood that fits in grooves that I've made in the side pieces and in the end piece. The groove in the end piece can run the entire length, but I can't do that on the side pieces, otherwise the groove will show through the end, and that doesn't look very good. Now, I really can't use my table saw to do that, but I can use my router shaper, which I've set up with a 1/4-inch bit, and I've put a piece of tape here to show me the location of the bit. As long as I lower the side piece down within the dado and run down to the other end, stopping within the other dado, that groove is never going to show. Now on the end pieces, the groove goes all the way. As you may recall, the easel folds up for storage. In order to accomplish that, I have to slide the tray forward, because if I just tip it up, it hits the chalkboard. So I made a slot that will ride on some dowel pins that you can't really see on the back side of the leg so that it gets to this position. Then it will fold up inside the legs. On the back of each side piece, there's a half-round hole, and each leg has a pin. And what that's for is as you slide the tray into place, it will support the tray and lock it in place. Now, to drill the half-round holes, I'm actually just going to clamp my 2 pieces together so that the ends are even. Right there. And I'm going to drill both holes at once using a 7/16" bit to about a depth of a 1/2 inch. Oh, that's perfect. Now on the other end, I've laid out the location for 3 holes. 1, 2, 3. That'll start to form that L. Now to complete the slot, I'm going to clamp my side into the bench and then take a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, which is actually going to act as a guide, and just set it so that the edge of the plywood is right even with the edge of the holes. Now with that clamped down, I turn to my router, which I've equipped with this collar. which is actually going to ride against the edge of the plywood. I have a 3/8 inch bit, and I'm going to plunge down to the same depth that I drilled the holes and just run from one hole to the other. Okay, now I have a groove that's 3/8 of an inch wide, the same width as my dowel pin. So that it won't bind up, I'm going to make it just a little bit wider by moving the plywood slightly and taking another pass. Now to remove any little burrs left from the drill, I'm just going to use a hand chisel. Yeah, that's good. Now I'll cut the same slot on the other piece. Well, now we're ready to assemble the tray. Some glue in the dado. A little bit on the end of the piece. Now with the dado, the glue, and the screw, it's a very strong joint. The bottom is next. Now the other side of the compartment that holds the chalk and the eraser will sit right on the plywood bottom. Okay, and we'll fasten that with a screw. The piece that holds the crayons and markers will get set flush with the top. Now that's where it belongs. You might notice there's a bit of a space here. That's so that if something small like a paper clip falls in the hole, you'll be able to get it out. It'll just fall out. Okay, now to further secure this chalk divider, a few brads won't hurt. Now I can install the pencil holder or the brush holder, and that simply gets one screw in each end. Now these are little bungs made out of the same ash that I built the rest of the project out of. And I simply apply glue, tap it into the hole, trim off the bulk of the excess with my dovetail saw, and when the glue is dry, I'll sand it flush. One of the features of the easel is this drawer, and it's suspended underneath the storage tray on these hardwood pieces that have a groove cut in them into which rides a hardwood strip on the side of the drawer. The next thing I want to do is make the groove in these pieces. I've just cut a series of biscuit slots for the drawer support system. This is the back piece, which I'll glue to the storage compartment side. And then the pieces that we made the dados in for the drawer runners will also get a biscuit to strengthen the butt joint. And I'll glue this piece to the bottom of the plywood and attach it with some brads. Okay, now this is the piece that forms the back of the drawer case. Okay, before I nail it off, I want to check it for square. That's good. This is a little handy jig that I made, which allows me to drill nice straight holes with a handheld drill. This hole is for the pin on which the tray will pivot. This hole is for the pin which supports the tray. One of the improvements that I made over the easels that you might find at the store is that I cut some slots in the frame edges so that the paper slides through it and is held in place by friction rather than clips. To cut that slot, I'm going to go to the table saw. Ooh, that works great. Now, just using my hand saw, I'm going to knock off the sharp point so it won't catch the paper. Now here I'm attaching the artboard and the chalkboard to the legs, again using screws. With the boards installed, now I can install the tray assembly. Just going to slip it between. And now I've removed one of the screws from the pivot side of the leg so I can just spread them out a bit and slip them into that groove. There we go. Now I'll just install the screw and we'll be ready to build that drawer. The drawer is the simplest part of the project. The box is made up of 4 pieces of 1/2-inch cabinet-grade plywood with a rabbet joint at each corner, and there's a groove for the 1/4-inch plywood bottom. Now this piece of ash will become the drawer front. I'll just set the box on it and attach it with a couple screws. Now this is a little strip of hardwood which will act as the runner that'll fit in the grooves I cut earlier. Well, with a knob installed on the drawer, all I have to do now is think about what kind of finish I want to put on our easel. The stain's already been applied. I've masked off the area where the chalkboard is. Now all I have to do is apply the poly. Well, it sure is nice to see the children enjoying that easel. And I think the parents are going to like it too. Now, next time, we're going to build a very unusual dollhouse. That's all I'm going to tell you. Until next time, right here on the New Yankee Workshop.
Norm's back after the break with another New Yankee creation, and this one's on wheels. Find out more in a few moments.